Hey guys, I'm Cody, and I want to share with you the motivation behind starting this YouTube channel. It's going to be a hybrid of a few things, but I think at its core, it's going to be an electronic journal for me to reflect back and document the journey that I've been on when it comes to my overall health and well-being. We're going to be recording my weight loss. We're going to be recording some of the medical ailments that I've been able to actually get out from under through diet and exercise. We're going to talk about fasting. We're going to talk about the foods that we're eating. And then it's also a way for me to connect with other people, because I know out there's people that are looking to do similar things or on a similar path that may have some questions, may need to bounce some ideas off of me or others in the community. So I really hope that this can evolve into something to where, great if there ends up being 10, 20 people in the comment sections that are helping each other out. But even if there's one person that is looking for some help and they find it here, that's all I can ask for. First of all, of course, I am not a doctor, not a medical advisor. Everything that I'm going to be talking about is from my own experiences, so take it with a grain of salt. Check with your doctor before implementing anything that I may have tried that has worked for me if you wanted to give it a shot. I had prediabetes. I think we all have some form of prediabetes or insulin resistance based on our modern diets, or just the abundance we have in food and how often we're eating and kind of shoving food into our mouths and having some glucose spikes. Blood pressure is something that I was really confused when I first was diagnosed with high blood pressure. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, what is high blood pressure? Eventually, when I went back in, I'm like, well, what does that mean? What is high blood pressure? Well, it's a condition. And she couldn't really explain what it was or why I had it. And then I started to do some research on my own and found out there's really no such thing as just high blood pressure. High blood pressure is the symptom of some other underlying ailment. And that's kind of the issue that I find with modern medicine. You go and see a doctor and you give them some symptom and they say, okay, here, this is this medicine that's going to take care of that. But then you might create some other side effect, getting down to the root of the issue. That's what I aim to find, is what is the root of the issue with any medical ailment that presents itself in my life. And I'm getting better and better at doing that, just from things like this, from podcasts, from reading books, from doing research on my own, reading other people's researchers, and trial and error. I've spent years and years and years involved in trying to figure out what is the best approach at my health. During my 20s, I was extremely healthy. I mean, I probably went 7 or 8 year period without getting sick. And I feel like my immune system back then was a lot better than it is today. And I'm trying to get back to that spot. Obviously, I'm a little bit older than I was, but if I can start putting the right things in my body like I was then I know I'm going to make, astronomical differences. And so I started my current journey that I'm on 3 months ago. And since then, I'm down about 33, 35 pounds. And I'm not doing anything too crazy. We'll get into that a little bit more. I do want to forewarn you, I am new to podcasting. I am new to social media. It's not something that has been very big part of my life. In fact, I've always kind of stayed away from the social media, and I really preferred my in-person interactions with my friends and family and community, because I thought that social media was going to be something that was going to divide us and keep us apart. And I think I was maybe a little bit misled on that. And I'm seeing it now as something that's going to help bring people together. This is the way things are going, so we really need to embrace it. That's what I'm doing here. This is going to be an experience for me to learn something new. I'm going to be able to learn some video editing skills. I'm going to be able to learn some recording. So bear with me as I get through this. I don't intend to become a YouTube influencer by any means. The goal really is to document my journey. And like I said, if I can help one person, that's going to be a really, really big, heartwarming moment for me. So, bear with me through that. So let's talk about some of the health changes that I made. So what I started doing was cutting back on the sugar. First step is like, how much more simple can it be other than maybe to stop drinking your calories. What do we do in the morning, right? We have a cup of coffee. We probably are putting some sugar in that. We may go over to Dutch Bros or Starbucks or whatever your poison be. What is happening there when we're drinking all that sugar? Well, the big thing is your glucose levels going up, right? Glucose is an energy source. It is an energy source. So we do need some sugars in our blood here and there to keep us going and fuel our bodies. But it's also toxic in our blood. So then our pancreas responds by creating insulin. And the insulin's job is to kind of escort that glucose out of your bloodstream. And it puts it in various places. It can put it into fat cells throughout your body. It can store it in your liver, in your kidney, in your heart, or other important organs. It can send it right over to your muscles and feel the energy you need for the gym or whatever physical activity you're doing. But the problem is, if you don't do any physical activity, they're just going to be stored as reserves, right? Like your body doesn't need them. It's not using them right now. So it's going to take all that sugar and then store it in a way to where it's actually going to be harmful. It's toxic in your blood, so it's trying to clean it out as quick as it can. It does this, every time you have a glucose spike, right? Every time you have sugar. Think of it as the insulin is going to these places and trying to open these doors and put the sugar through these doors and say, hey, I got the sugar for you. You're going to drop it here. You can use it and do what you need with it. But then if you have sugar again later in the day or the next day or the next day or the next day, this is compounding over years, obviously. We eat this way day in, day out. The doors kind of become deaf to the insulin. You said that yesterday. We didn't really use it. I'm not opening the door for you. So the insulin sends more insulin, or the pancreas sends more insulin. And that's what insulin resistance is we keep on eating sugar, we keep on having these high glycemic foods, and pancreas keeps having to work harder and harder and harder to get the sugars where they need to be, in essence. This is all very simplified. Again, I am not a scientist. This is just through my research. I've spent quite a few years, looking at podcasts, reading books, reading other research papers, and then just experimenting on myself through trial and error. Now we know that you eat anything that has a glycemic index in it, and this doesn't have to be sugar. So even if it says no sugar on it, there's 100 different chemicals that these companies, these manufacturers can masquerade sugar as, dextrose and all types of different things. And, you really do have to have a chemist degree to go into a grocery store and read these packages and know what's actually going to happen to your body if you put it into your mouth. Think of just the most simple things. What do you have for breakfast? Yogurt and granola, pancakes, waffles, toast, cereal. It's going to create a glucose spike. And that's when this whole chain reaction goes into effect. Say you eat breakfast around 9-10 o'clock. That glucose spike stays in your blood for 2 to 3 hours. Insulin will remain in your body for 2 to 4 hours. So it's 10 o'clock, you eat. 4 hours later, it's 2 o'clock. You eat again. Maybe you've already eaten again. That factory is just running, right? And then you have dinner. So it's running all day long. Think about a factory that never shuts down. That's always running. There's no maintenance crew, right? There's no one there that's going to clean things up. It's just there's trash everywhere, bits and pieces of of product getting discarded on the floor, and the machines are never getting oiled and lubed up or whatever, right? So that's kind of what's going on with your body. Your physiology at its core, the nature of your body, is made for a feast and famine setup. In the modern world, we don't have to worry about that, right? You don't have to worry about where am I going to get my next meal today? There are people out there that do have to, unfortunately, but for the majority of us, especially, out in the West, we don't have to worry about where's our next meal coming from. And most of us will eat 2-3 meals a day. This factory is constantly running, and we're never giving our bodies a chance to clean it up. Once you stop eating, and once you get the insulin out of your bloodstream, your body actually starts to begin a lot of different processes to clean your body, clean out old cells. We call that autophagy. That's one that doesn't come in till later on. That could be a 24-hour period without eating. For most people, what I understand is about 18 hours is when autophagy kicks in. And that word just means self-eating, I think. And it just means that it's cleaning out bad cells. Think about cancer, right? Cancer is a cell that, is a deformed cell, I guess, or for lack of a better term, that'll just reproduce and reproduce and reproduce itself. Autophagy is actually a good defense against cancer because it's cleaning out the cells that are not there to do you any good. We do have to think about not eating here and there. And some people call that intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting just means that you're going to go a lengthened period of time without eating. So maybe you don't eat for 18 hours out of the day, but you eat for 6. So you have a 6-hour feeding window. So you can make that however you want, depending on your schedule. Let's say noon to 6 o'clock. So you're eating within that 6-hour window. That allows your body time to go a longer period without having insulin and glucose in your blood. And then what happens after you haven't eaten for a while? So we're storing fat in our bodies, right? And there's a couple different types of fat. The fat that you can pinch in your skin, that fat's not that dangerous for you. But there's the fat that's under your muscle tissues, in your organs, in your heart, in your liver. If you've ever been diagnosed with fatty liver, an ultrasound will reveal visceral fat in the liver. Visceral fat is gonna actually latch on to those organs, and your organs aren't going to be able to function properly. So visceral fat, there's really only one way to get rid of it. And if you go grocery shopping and you put food in the fridge and you never take food out, you never eat what's in there, you just keep putting more stuff in there, well, you're just going to store it and you're going to have it for later, and it's going to get nasty and gross. And that's what visceral fat does. Like it's the food that we just put into our bodies and we never take out. I don't care how much of a calorie deficit you're in. I don't care how much you go to the gym. You can't lose visceral fat without fasting. Until you stop putting food into your body, you can never get rid of that stuff. A lot of people would say, well, I can't go that long without eating. I get lightheaded. I get dizzy. I don't feel good after not eating for a few hours. I skip a meal and I don't feel good. Well, that's a form of, hyperglycemia. That's not a good thing. That's not normal. If you can't go a day without eating, if you can't go, and skip breakfast and lunch and eat at dinner, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, whatever, without feeling hangry, without having, brain fog, confusion, soreness, dizziness, headaches, lightheadedness, that's not a good thing. That's a bad sign. I think what's happening there is your microbiome in your gut. There are certain colonies in your gut that are feeding on the junk food that we keep putting in there and giving them. There are certain ones that are dependent on that kind of stuff. You stop having those things and all of a sudden you're having hunger pangs, you're feeling lightheaded. Well, it's those colonies actually sending signals to your brain saying, we're dying. And until you actually stop feeding them and let them die off, replace them with good bacteria, and that's through ways of eating like kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, Greek yogurts, or just probiotic supplements, you're going to have a hard time. It's going to take a while. So I don't suggest going cold turkey. Let's do a 2-day fast, or let's not eat for 24 hours. Like you're not going to start off that way. You're going to start off with maybe eating breakfast an hour later or 2 hours later. Work your way up until you're going to eat for 8 hours out of the day. So, you fast for 16 and you eat for 8 hours. And you're going to do that for a couple weeks. And then you move to a point where you can shave off a couple hours, an hour or two off of that. And you're going to shorten it and shorten it. So this is something that's going to take weeks. Maybe you do that for 2 weeks and then you move on to the next phase for 2 weeks. But it's going to take a while to get there. You're not going to feel comfortable. But you know what? Did you build the body you have overnight? It took me years to get this aesthetic. So it's going to take me a while to get back to where I need to be. It's something I've done before. I know how it's done, but man, I tell you, like a bag of Doritos late at night while I'm watching some movie, drinking some beers, like it feels good. It's good right now. And we're so used to that instant gratification, right? We can get our dopamine today. We can get it right now by, clicking a button on our phone or whatever. So we're just so accustomed to the instant gratification, and we really need to break our habits and break our brains out of that cycle. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna take a while. It's not something that you can actually just boom overnight. I'm gonna go cold turkey. You're gonna have setbacks. You're gonna make mistakes. I want to reach my fitness goals as quickly as I can and reverse a lot of the damage I've done to my body before it gets any worse. I'm sure everyone's familiar with diabetes, type 1, type 2. Type 1 diabetes is considered irreversible. And that's where your pancreas no longer creates insulin. So you have to actually take insulin shots to be able to deal with glucose in your blood, right? Type 2 diabetes, at one point it was believed to be irreversible. That's not true. Type 2 diabetes just means that you're insulin resistant. You have to get out of that. You're not going to become non-insulin resistant overnight. It's going to take a long time and a lot of sticking the course to make this work. Timed eating is everything because you're allowing your body to do what your body does. Hundreds of years ago, people didn't eat every day, right? There was days where they wouldn't eat, and surely not as much sugar. Like we have crossbred plants, fruit to be as tasty as it can possibly be. Apples, bananas, grapes, everything that we eat is exceptionally sweet and delicious. And it's through natural selection that it's that way. It wasn't always that way. From my understanding, fruit was, moderately sweet, much lower glycemic index than it is today. And so we're eating fruit all year round. But, well, that's weird, right? Like, I live in the Pacific Northwest. Well, how the heck am I having a mango in October? Well, I probably shouldn't be, right? We've evolved to eat in a more primitive manner, but through modern advances and technology, right, we don't have to worry about that. We can have whatever the heck we want. An apple a day keeps a doctor away, right? Probably shouldn't be having an apple every day. That's a lot of sugar. And then to make matters worse, now we're having fruit juices. Oh no, I'm being healthy. I just had juice. I had apple juice. First of all, are we talking like apple juice out of a can, out of a bottle, like Welch's apple juice? Like, check the sugar, check the added sugar and all the other ingredients on that. Or are you talking about a juiced apple? Even then, a juiced apple, that's a huge glucose spike. You just removed all the fiber from that apple, which fiber is something that will help your body to break down the glucose. And we have a fiber deficiency in society. Look at all the processed food. If you get it in a package, things are being robbed of fiber left and right. To further expand on, things you can do to help curb your glucose spike, eat your fiber. You can eat your food in an order that actually lowers the glucose spike. If you eat your salad first, before your meal, or your veggies, if you have a side of veggies and a protein or whatever, eat your veggies first. Eat the fiber, because that will basically kind of create like a mesh filter in your body that'll help the glucose to not be absorbed so readily. So eat the fiber first, then eat your fats, then your proteins, and then finally, if you have to have carbs, eat your carbs last. So if you're going to have like a slice of garlic bread or whatever, have that last. But I do encourage you to cut those kinds of things out of your diet as much as you possibly can. Getting back to what happens when you're fasting. We've heard of ketosis, right? The keto diet. So the keto diet is, in a very simple explanation, we're getting rid of the carbs and sugars. We're going to try to be in ketosis as much as we possibly can. What ketosis means is that your body is now relying on ketones rather than glucose for its energy. And it's going to be burning through that visceral fat, and it's going to turn that nasty, yucky visceral fat into very clean fuel known as ketones that your body can run off of. Going back to our physiology, we were made to last for a long time. The human can last probably months, without having food, if you have enough stored from your surplus, your feast time. Those ketones are a much cleaner burning fuel for your body. And obviously you want to be using ketones because that means you're burning visceral fat. The other thing too is when you're losing weight this way, that's what's going to stop you from having loose skin when you lose all that weight. When you lose weight through just like a calorie deficit, an exercise or liposuction or whatever, that's when you see people that have they lost 100, 200 pounds and they have a lot of loose skin. Well, when you're fasting, that you don't lose fat like that. Everything goes. All those old cells in your skin, everywhere else is getting purged. So everything will tighten up with you. So these ketones, we want to be burning ketones. We want to be in ketosis, maybe 18 hours, 24 hours. It starts kicking up. To get into that longer fast, another thing that I want is have some babysitting. And so if I die, it'll be documented. You guys can watch me. But I'm going to start doing some longer fasts. I've done 3-day, 4-day fasts in the past, but I want to go longer than that. I'll do a 3, I'll do a 4. I'll work up to a 7-day. And then just see how I'm feeling from there. It's not all about fitness, it's about health and fitness as a whole. We need to have a holistic approach. I will be doing that, and I want to be recording that as I go, checking in with you guys. Um, Blood pressure, like I talk about blood pressure, I was able to actually get my blood pressure down to a very manageable level without the drugs that my doctor prescribed me, just through getting to where we need to be. Because when you're having those insulin spikes, you're also increasing inflammation in your body. Well, inflammation is going to contribute to your blood pressure. Everything's being constricted. Inflammation can actually be the cause for building plaque in your arteries, and the number one cause for death right now is heart failure, right? Heart disease, coronary heart failure. It's amazing how much younger people are dying of heart failure now than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. In this era of convenience, we just are putting food into our body and we're never allowing it to clean itself out, and that includes our arteries. If you have diabetes, you have a much higher chance of heart failure. There's a lot of things that you can do to reverse the damage you've done to yourself. That's what I got for today. I'm feeling better. I'm just feeling a lot more focused, a lot more whole, a lot more present, and just less miserable, man. It's a huge difference if you can get to a point to where you're only putting things in your body that are going to help you and not hurt you. And we're eating for health, and we're eating for sustenance, and we're not eating just for pleasure. My drug of choice has always been food. Food is like, it feels so good, right? Except that dopamine rush is just like no other, right? But we got to get out of that. It's hurting us, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later.